She dumped me in a parking lot for her ex. Months later, she showed up at my door with cameras rolling, ready to destroy my life. She said, "I think we should just be friends. My ex needs me more." For a second, I thought I'd heard her wrong. We were standing in the parking lot behind her apartment, the same spot where I'd planned to hand her the car key I'd been saving up for. Instead, I slipped it back into my pocket, looked her dead in the eye, and said real quiet, "All right, I hope you're happy." No yelling, no begging, no asking why, because honestly, I already knew the answer. She looked relieved, like she'd just set down something heavy, not realizing that what she dropped was the last bit of respect I had left for her. I turned around, got in my car, and drove off without looking back. Moments like that can feel weirdly peaceful, like you're finally accepting reality. At the time, I figured that was the end of it. It wasn't. A few months later, in the middle of the night, she showed up at my door, soaking wet, mascara running down her face, with a small crowd behind her filming the whole thing. Emma and I had been together for 3 years. I'm a freelance photographer, the kind who spends half his life chasing light, not people. She was an accountant, stable, organized, precise. In a way, we balanced each other out. I brought the chaos, she brought the structure. At least, that's what I thought. For a long time, things felt easy. We didn't fight about money or trust or what our future looked like. She liked that I was laid back. I liked that she was grounded. But here's the thing about comfort. It becomes invisible until something shinier comes along. That something was her ex, Ryan. The guy just reappeared out of nowhere. Suddenly, he's all successful, wearing suits, driving a black BMW, talking about how he'd finally turned his life around. He started texting Emma, saying he missed her, that he was doing better now, that he'd grown up. At first, she told me everything, said he was just an old friend who'd fallen on hard times, but I could hear something shift in her voice. She started talking about him like he was some project she needed to fix, not a person she should avoid. Then came the excuses: working late, helping with a business plan, dinner with an old friend. Every time I wanted to ask more questions, but I didn't. Not because I was clueless, but because I wanted to see what she'd do when left to her own honesty. Turns out that honesty had an expiration date. One night we were sitting at our usual diner. Her phone lit up with a message: "Dinner tonight. I need to talk." She tilted the screen away like it burned her. I didn't say a word, just kept eating, but inside, something heavy and final settled in my chest. I knew where this was heading. I'd already been planning something for our anniversary, a small silver car she'd been dreaming of for months. She'd mentioned it once, casual-like, saying, "Maybe one day when things are more stable." I wanted to surprise her, not to show off, but because I thought it'd make her life easier. Funny how you can plan a future with someone who's already halfway out the door. The next evening, she called me over, said she wanted to talk. Her voice was soft, almost rehearsed. She didn't cry, didn't look guilty. She just said the line that started all of this. Her words confirmed what I'd suspected. She wasn't leaving because she had to. She was leaving because she was curious, wanted to see if the grass was greener. I remember feeling this weird clarity, not pain, not anger, just confirmation. Everything I'd quietly suspected was true. So I smiled, slipped that car key back into my pocket, and said, "All right, I hope you're happy." Then I walked away. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was losing anything. For weeks after that, I kept waiting for the sadness to hit. It didn't. I went to work, edited photos, slept better than I had in years. Sometimes peace comes just from letting go. People think heartbreak looks like crying in the dark, but sometimes it's just a guy standing in an empty parking lot, quietly realizing he was never the problem. After that night, I didn't spiral, No drunk texts, no sleepless breakdowns, no long drives past her place. I just moved on. I threw myself into work, started taking more travel gigs, landscapes, local festivals, portraits of people who still looked alive. My photos started getting noticed. A gallery in Portland invited me to do a small exhibit called Stillness. It sold out faster than I expected. Here's the weird part. I could capture calm in photos way easier than I'd ever lived it. Every once in a while, mutual friends would bring up Emma. Always uninvited, always with that careful tone like they were giving me news I'd secretly been waiting for. "She seems happy," they'd say. "She's dating that businessman guy, Ryan. You know, the ex." I'd just smile and say what I actually believed. The shiniest things are usually the most hollow. And I'd leave it at that. For months, I didn't think about her. Then all of a sudden, I started hearing whispers. Ryan wasn't who he said he was. Turns out his businesses were nothing but unpaid loans and half-finished scams. He owed money to investors, maxed out credit cards under other people's names, had a habit of skipping town every time things got too real. Within a few months, Emma had drained her savings covering Ryan's unpaid debts. She was struggling to keep her apartment and her job. Eventually, the pressure got to be too much. She lost the apartment, quit her job, and friends started noticing bruises she couldn't explain. I didn't feel satisfaction, just inevitability. People who chase illusions always end up tripping over reality. By then, I had my own reality to focus on. Months later, while working on a travel feature in Oregon, I met Leah, the editor overseeing the project. We spent long hours reviewing photos, critiquing captions, teasing each other over coffee. Slowly, something grew between us. Quiet, but undeniable. She was sharp, brutally honest, and allergic to drama. When we first met, she looked at my beat-up old camera and said, "You know this thing's seen more life than most people." I laughed. It was the first time in a long while that someone made me laugh without trying to fix something broken in me. We started working together more. She'd critique my photos. I'd give her grief for using too many adjectives in her travel pieces. There was no big confession, no movie moment, just two people who didn't need to prove anything, showing up day after day without pretending to be perfect. And somewhere between the road trips and late-night editing sessions, I realized something. I didn't miss Emma, I missed the idea of her, the one I'd built when I thought love meant patience instead of clarity. Then one night, my phone buzzed. A number I hadn't seen in months. "Jack, I know I messed up. Ryan's gone. He lied about everything. I lost everything, but I know you still care. Please, can we talk? You still love me, don't you?" I stared at the message for a long minute. Not angry, not nostalgic, just tired. Then I typed back, "I used to love you, but the person I loved doesn't exist anymore." I hit send, blocked the number, and put the phone down. No second thoughts, no regret. Because sometimes closure isn't a conversation. It's just finally realizing you don't owe anyone an explanation for walking away from chaos. It happened about 3 months later. One quiet night, Leah was asleep on the couch, a book open on her chest. I was editing some photos when violent pounding rattled the front door. At first, I figured maybe it was a delivery gone wrong or a drunk neighbor, but then came the yelling. "Jack! Open the damn door, you coward!" I froze. That voice, raw, cracked, way too familiar. Emma. When I opened the door, the scene outside didn't feel real. She was standing there, soaking wet, eyes wild, makeup streaked down her cheeks, and behind her were 3 people, phones out, recording. I could hear the faint clicks of camera shutters and someone whispering, "Keep filming."
Emma pointed at me, voice shaking with rage. "You left me! You ruined my life! You did this to me!" For a second, I just looked at her, not in shock, but in disbelief at how far she had fallen. The same woman who used to worry about having the right throw pillows for her couch now stood in my doorway screaming accusations like a complete stranger. I didn't raise my voice, just asked, real quiet, "What are you doing, Emma?" She stepped closer, eyes glassy and unfocused. "You think you're better than me now, posting your happy little pictures while I suffer? You abandoned me, Jack. You broke me." Her friends started yelling too, trying to get a rise out of me, their phones catching every angle. Didn't take a genius to figure out what this was, a setup, a desperate attempt to make me look like the bad guy in whatever story she was trying to sell online. Emma appeared behind me, calm as ever. "I'm calling the police." Emma laughed, a hollow, hysterical sound. Let everyone see what kind of man he really is. But I didn't move, just stood there, hands in my pockets, looking at her with the kind of calm that drives unstable people crazy. When I finally spoke, my voice was flat, almost gentle. "You weren't abandoned. You abandoned yourself the moment you chose lies over truth." For a split second, the words hit her. I could see it in her eyes. Then the mask snapped back into place and she started screaming again, pounding on my chest while her friends kept recording. Leah kept the phone line open until the cops showed up. When they did, I stepped aside and pulled up the footage from my security cameras, clear as day, her trespassing, yelling, trying to force her way in. The officers looked at her, then at me. One of them sighed, clearly used to this kind of drama. "Ma'am, you need to leave right now. If you come back here, it'll be trespassing." Emma's lip quivered. "He's lying. He ruined me. You don't understand." But nobody was buying it. Even her friends looked uneasy now, slowly lowering their phones. The officers escorted them away. As she was being led off the porch, Emma turned back one last time, eyes blazing with something between heartbreak and fury. "You'll regret this, Jack. You'll regret not saving me." I didn't move, didn't speak until the patrol car's lights faded down the street. Then I whispered, mostly to myself, "No, Emma. You're the one already living with regret." I closed the door, locked it, and stood there in the quiet, the echo of rain filling the space where her chaos used to be. Leah slipped her hand into mine and said softly, "Are you okay?" I nodded. "Yeah. For the first time, I think I actually am." After that night, things finally settled down. A few weeks later, Leah and I packed up what we had and left the city behind. We moved to a small town on the Oregon coast, tucked between foggy cliffs and evergreen hills. I opened a tiny photography studio, nothing fancy, just white walls, good light, and the smell of salt drifting through the cracked window. No clients chasing Instagram trends, no fake smiles for social media, just landscapes, local portraits, and the kind of stillness I'd forgotten existed. Leah freelanced as a travel editor, writing about hidden trails, local artists, and coast and storms. Sometimes she would sit by the window, laptop on her knees, hair messy from the wind, while I developed film in the back room. We didn't talk much about the past. We didn't need to. Peace doesn't require explanations. Months passed. The studio did well enough to pay the bills, and somehow that felt like success. I deleted most of my social media, not out of anger, just disinterest. Once you've lived inside someone else's chaos, silence becomes the most beautiful sound in the world. One morning, early spring, I was cleaning out a desk drawer when my hand brushed against something cold. A single car key, still on its original ring. The same one I'd planned to give Emma that night, back when I still believed she was my future. I turned it over in my hand, the metal catching light like a reminder and a ghost at the same time. Leah walked in holding 2 mugs of coffee. "You look like you just found buried treasure," she teased. I smiled. "In a way, yeah. I bought this once for someone who didn't understand love, and now I'm thinking it might finally start a new story with someone who actually does." She looked at me for a long moment, then set the coffee down, eyes soft. "I'll make sure you never regret giving it away again." And somehow I knew she meant it. That evening, we took the car and drove down Highway 101, the ocean to our right, the sun bleeding gold over the horizon. For a while we didn't say anything. The radio hummed softly, waves crashing against the rocks below. At one point, Leah glanced over at me. "Do you ever think about her?" I thought about it. About Emma's voice, her chaos, the version of myself that tried to fix what was never mine to fix. Then I shook my head. Not really. I think about who I was when I loved her, and how far I've come from that. Leah smiled, reached over and laced her fingers through mine. The road curved ahead, and for the first time in a long time, the future felt clear. Emma vanished after the incident. Word eventually got around: unpaid debts, mental health struggles, another relationship gone wrong. Her social media disappeared overnight. Some people pitied her. I didn't hate her, but I didn't pity her either. I just let it be. "Letting go isn't weakness," I told Leah one night as we locked up the studio. "Sometimes it's the only way to keep your dignity intact." She nodded. "What do you think healing looks like?" I thought about it for a second. It's not revenge. It's not forgetting either. It's just finding peace. And standing there on that quiet coastal street, with the woman I loved beside me, and a future I'd built on my own terms, I finally understood what that meant. Sometimes the best revenge is no revenge at all. It's just moving forward, living well, and realizing that the person who walked away from you did you the biggest favor of your life. Because now, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.